In this lesson, I'm going to cover DNS forwarding. DNS forwarding is a very similar process as to what we covered in the previous lesson. Here, the first thing my client will do when I try to resolve www.rtsnetworking.com is check the client cache. Same process as in the previous lesson. Then it checks the host file, sends a recursive query to the local DNS server. The local DNS server will determine if that name is local or remote. It will check its own cache. Up to this point, that process is exactly the same as the previous lesson. Where it differs, when the local DNS server determines that the name is not in the cache, it will send a recursive query to another DNS server. That DNS server that receives a recursive query now has the onus put on it to fully resolve the name rtsnetworking.com. It is very common that you'll forward to an external DNS server provided by your ISP. This external DNS I have listed 8.8.8.8 is actually the public Google DNS server that anyone can forward to. Some of you on your networks now, your DNS may very well be 8888. In this example, my local DNS server does not directly communicate with the root of the internet. It will forward all requests to the external DNS. That external DNS will communicate with other DNS servers, communicate with the root of the internet. It will do all the work. When it resolves that name, it will, at step 7, it will send that resolved name back to the local DNS server. The local DNS server will take that name, place it in cache. At step 9, my local DNS server sends that resolved name back to the client. Now the client has the IP address that rtsnetworking.com resolves to. A very common implementation for forwarding is if I have DNS servers on the internal network, I may not want those DNS servers to directly communicate with the internet. So in my perimeter network, I may deploy a DNS server. My internal DNS will forward all queries to the DNS server in the perimeter network. That DNS server in the perimeter network will be the server that directly communicates with the internet. That gives me a barrier between my internal network and the internet, but I still have full name resolution. Now let's take a look at how forwarding is configured in the interface.